The Gamers, Kyla's Rescue, written and narrated by C. Taylor, edited to meet YouTube guidelines. To purchase the unedited book, please click the link in the description. Chapter 6. The quiet ride to the port was giving Sky too much time to think. Her hands holding the controls started to shake, her lungs caught with escaping sobs despite her discipline. She wouldn't let herself think about what was on the other side of the port. As a last resort, she made a call. "This is Rylan. What's up?" he asked, not recognizing the call source. "Rylan." The name came out as more of a plea than Sky would have wanted. "Sky, are you okay? I've been going crazy," he admitted in a rush. "I'm headed for the port," she informed him, tears starting to stream down her face. Silence. "Sky." It came out as a whisper. Sky cleared her throat. "I just wanted to let you know so you wouldn't come looking. You're the only one that would." "Damn it, Sky," he cursed softly. I know, I'm sorry," she tried to say, her rebellious lungs spasmed as tears kept falling. "I'm on my way," he said quickly. "Wait, Rylan, no!" The connection dropped. She tried to call him again, but he didn't pick up. Sky cursed and kept en route to the port. On approach to Port Authority, Sky's screen lit up with the authorization request. She tapped to send the preloaded authorization and was given the go-ahead by the time she was being directed where to land. She grabbed one of the cargo worker coats that were hanging near the ramp and snapped the front closed. She activated her trinket and tucked it in her pocket. Next, she disconnected the cargo hover unit from the bay and pushed it toward the ramp. She took one more deep, calming breath and hit the button. The port was very busy. It was her first time seeing it, so she didn't know if it was always this way. She pushed the unit down the ramp, stopped in front of the port scout, and waited while he checked the authorizations programmed into the unit. He checked that against the card Sky had gotten from the Baron. He tapped his screen a few times, then pointed to the loading bay she needed. Sky nodded and headed in that direction. She kept her breathing calm, movement steady. The trinket in her pocket would cause the surveillance video to look slightly grainy around her, which was normal for crowds this size. As long as she didn't pull attention to herself, she would be fine. As she approached the final checkpoint, she took her place at the end of the queue. She focused on keeping her breathing calm to mask the terror of passing this checkpoint into a complete unknown. She barely stopped walking to wait in her line when an arm looped around her shoulders and gently urged her forward. Sky flinched and looked. It was Rylan. "I understand we need to get you through quickly, ma'am. Please follow me," he said in his official voice, dressed in his full security uniform. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her tone betraying her relief at seeing him. "Neither should you, but here we are," he whispered back. They made their way to the front of the queue. The final guard nodded at Rylan, luckily didn't ask for his credentials, and ushered her into the interplanet port area. "Which bay?" he whispered. 24, looking for Pilot Dacker. Rylan nodded and changed direction slightly. Sky didn't notice her timer tick down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They neared Bay 24. A pilot leaned against the post with the number display. "Must be your pilot." They were nearly there. Suddenly, the cargo unit bucked. The hoverfield failed at the same time, tipping it over. The seal broke. Kyla's body and the bag spilled across the ground. Everything started moving very slowly. Sky didn't understand what she was seeing as she looked around. The crowd around her started to move away from her. The way their bodies looked, they were running or ducking. Rylan looked like he was yelling something at her, but she didn't hear anything, and he was moving so slow his mouth was still forming the first word. From the port gate, she saw several security guards moving towards them, their legs making running motions, but they were moving slower than if they were walking. One agent raised his blaster and shot. She watched the deadly bolt leave the weapon and move past her, wondering how it could possibly be moving like it was. She followed it with her eyes, saw it impact in Pilot Decker's chest, knocking him off his feet and slowly sailing through the air. Sky moved. Her movement seemed normal speed. She reached in the bag on the floor for her blaster, still set to stun. She grabbed the strap and pulled it over her head as she raised the weapon and took aim. She stunned all agents in quick succession, grabbed the portable medical kit, and rolled Kyla back into the cargo unit, then reactivated the hoverfield. She grabbed Rylan and dragged him with her along with the cargo unit into the ship. She closed the ramp, secured Kyla, and pulled Rylan into the co-pilot seat. She then took the pilot seat and grabbed the controls. She prayed there was a destination already programmed, and thankfully she was able to quickly find it. She kept it on her screen while she disconnected the tethers and took the controls. The craft lurched forward, passing the Skynet at the atmosphere's edge. Without proper clearance, she knew she just activated the defense cannons. She searched for the countermeasures. She found the command for them, then waited. No alert. Her eyebrows pulled together. She tapped to display the rear camera and watched the cannons. They were already outside range, and they were just starting to move, slowly like everything else. What was happening? Once she was sufficient distance from her home planet, she engaged the autopilot. The controls started moving on their own. That same moment, Sky, what the hell? The scream left her ears ringing. Ryland's face was red with rage. Then he looked around and instantly turned pale. Sky, what the hell? The security agents killed the pilot. They were about to aim at us. It was the only option. She tried to explain, not knowing what else to say. She'd seen the whole thing, but somehow Ryland hadn't quite caught any of it. Ryland started to breathe heavily. Strangled hysterical sobs were the only sounds he could make for a few minutes. Sky raised her hand and started to rub his shoulders, recognizing the signs of one of his panic attacks. I'll find a way to get you back to Suenia. Just breathe, Ryland. I promise I will get you back. Sky soothed, still rubbing his shoulders. How? He screeched. I don't know, but I also don't know how I just got past about 15 security checkpoints I shouldn't have been able to. I will come up with something. At that, Ryland finally looked out the window and realized they were safely cruising at solar speed outside the reach of any Suenia defenses. How the hell did you do all this? I have no idea. Sometime later, Sky checked the helix readings again. The portable apparatus included in her healer's pack could monitor body systems, detect any foreign bodies or substances, and perform simple surgical procedures or assist with more complex ones. From its readings, Sky confirmed Kyla was alive, but she wasn't waking up. The scan revealed far less damage than she would have expected considering the medication she'd been given over the last few days. No infections. The damage that had been done was already starting to heal now that the last of the medication had left her body and would not be replaced. Sky reached behind her neck, released the clasp from the necklace she was wearing, and gently secured it around Kyla's neck. Sky had moved Kyla to one of the resting bunks and administered all the recommended remedies. All that was left to do was wait. Rylan was resting in one of the other bunks, exhausted from his panic attack as usual. With the two people depending on her taken care of, at least for the moment, Sky wandered back to the pilot seat. Her mind reviewed everything the Baron had said, how he acted when she asked about the air bomb, searched for something she may have missed that could give her hope they would be safe where they were going. She didn't know anywhere else to go. She didn't have any other choice. She pulled her knees up under her chin and hugged them close. Her body started to shake. She started crying softly as to not wake up Rylan, but so intensely she had difficulty getting enough breath. What had she done? And what was she supposed to do now? Sometime later, the alarm woke Sky. Not realizing she'd fallen asleep, she felt the familiar rush of anxiety as she read the screen. The autopilot disengaged from solar speed. The engines groaned as the ship slowed suddenly to cruising speed. The bright blur out the window caused by passing through space so quickly darkened into empty space that opened out before them. Sky squinted. She expected to see planets she would try to recognize or star stations she could use to get her bearings, but there was nothing. Where were they? She hoped she would find something that would quiet her fears, but they just roared to life stronger than ever. The star cruiser moved smoothly, heading for something, but Sky just saw nothing. A hand touched her shoulder. The sharp pull from her concentration it caused made her jump, grab the hand instantly twisting it, and turn to strike. Rylan caught the swinging hand at the same time a high-pitched screech escaped his mouth from the pain in his second hand. I'm sorry, he repeated as he soothed his friend. I didn't realize you were concentrating. I shouldn't have done that. Sky immediately released Ryland's hand and took a calming breath. I didn't realize it either. How are you feeling? Sky asked, scanning her friend to gauge if he was calm after his panic attack. Terrified, but managing, he admitted. Sky looked him over one more time, knew she would need to keep a close eye on him, but he was not the priority at the moment. Right now, she needed to figure out where they were going. She looked back out the window. A small glint of something metal appeared in the distance and slowly grew larger. Once it was near enough, Sky recognized it as a warship, and her heart sank. Their star cruiser glided to one side, a flight deck opening appeared, and they were headed straight for it. Sky took a moment to scan over the ship. It was old, in disrepair. Sky wasn't sure if it was completely structurally viable. What is that? Rylan asked weakly. Sky glanced at him quickly. He looked pale, but he was still standing. Sky hoped that would last. It's a warship, old one. By its condition, I think it may have been one that was decommissioned decades ago, but it's been a long time since I've researched military procedures, she admitted. Ryland teetered, but took a deep breath and stayed on his feet. I suddenly feel bad for teasing you about always reading between training classes. Sky shrugged. I needed something to distract from what everyone was saying about me. What's in it? He asked the question she was dreading. Sky gently took his arm before she spoke. I don't know. Could be privateers, could be ex-military that don't agree with the current potentate, refugees. Sky's hand tightened on Ryland's arm as his legs buckled. She guided him gently to the ground. Well, what are we going to do? He asked shakily. She looked him in the eyes, debated whether or not to tell him the truth. I only know a little more than you do, and that's not one of them. Truth it was. Ryland's eyes rolled, then shut. Sky pulled against his dead weight until he was safely lying in a corner of the floor before standing back up to watch as their craft entered the warship. The opening was veiled, blocking her view. They would enter it blind. She took out her blaster, made sure it was set to stun, safety off, and held it low to her side. She took a deep breath as the ship moved through the veil, the cargo bay finally visible. Inside the ship looked worse than the outside. Piles of rubbish were heaped in spots along the wall. Only a few men were on the landing deck. Looked like they'd been soldiers once, but life had not been kind. Their steps were regimented, but their backs were slumped, eyes hollow. Hope was a luxury they'd given up long ago. The cargo bay height spanned several floors of the warship. At the far wall, a few floors up, there was a viewing area. An impossibly large man stood there, watching their ship as it entered, his face partially covered with a metal shield, wearing what Skyla recognized as a general's uniform, old and faded. Its markings matched the same time frame she thought the warship had been decommissioned. Pieces were starting to fit together, but she still had no idea what the picture would be. Next to the general, a woman, looked to be about the same age as Sky, standing close to him. He kept himself in front of her in a protective stance. She mattered to him, Sky could tell. The general called orders. His men complied immediately. They all seemed well trained and loyal to him. Her craft glided to one side of the platform, lowered slowly, and landed with barely a vibration and no sound at all. The men around them started to move, efficiently linking the craft up to their systems to refresh its resources. Sky's eyebrow raised. These men were good, extremely well trained, each knowing their jobs and looking out for each other. It was just like how she read it had been under the previous potentate. It was one of her favorite times in history to research. Now she was seeing it in real life. If they were what she thought they would be fair, but by far the fiercest of all forces if crossed. The only question was how did they see the ones on board the ship, friends or foe? She had to gamble on friends. She tucked her blaster behind her in the waist of her pants and leaned over Rylan. The loading ramp would open soon, and Rylan needed to understand complete surrender was their only option. She gently shook him, slapped him lightly on the face. Nothing roused him. She looked around, didn't see any liquid she could use to splash on him. She heard the loading dock ramp lower. She took a deep breath. She would need to warn the soldiers since updating Rylan wouldn't be an option. She made her way to the loading area, made sure to raise her hands as she neared. She ducked to see if any of the soldiers were entering, not wanting to startle any of them. Two men came around and leaned over to look into the craft. Sky walked out of the shadows slowly, showing them she was not a threat. Startled, the two men grabbed their weapons and pointed them at her. Don't move, they ordered first. Sky instantly stilled. Turn around, was their next order. Sky immediately admitted before she moved. I have a blaster at my waist. It sets to stun only. Keep your hands up and turn around. If you lower them at all, we will shoot you, they warned. Sky's breath caught, but she complied. Stop, they ordered again. Sky froze. Walk back to us, straight back until we tell you to stop. Sky's feet shuffled backwards, unfamiliar with the platform and not wanting to fall. This was not a simulation. There was no reset for this one. Halfway down the ramp, all hell broke loose. Sky heard a scream. Stay away from my friend! Sky recognized it as Rylan, and a blast shot out of the bay, striking the soldier to her left in the arm. Sky's hand snapped behind her, grabbed the blaster as she turned and stunned the other. Rylan, stop! She screamed as the other two soldiers turned to attack. Sky noticed movement from the viewing area above them. The girl that had been standing there leaped over the safety wall and descended to the cargo area floor. Sky had to stun two more soldiers before she could turn to the girl. She had moved faster than Sky anticipated, her arm already swinging and connecting with Sky's face. The impact knocked her into the air. Sky twisted, bringing her feet around and landing on them. Sky ducked the girl's next strike, then shifted her feet. Third strike, she leaned back, felt the breeze it created as it barely missed her neck, then caught the back of her arm. She shoved forward, forcing the girl to turn. Still holding the girl's arm, she raised her other arm around the girl's neck, then brought the blaster to the girl's head. As she suspected, all the soldiers froze. Rylan, if you take another shot, I swear I'll tell your mother everything. She threatened the one thing she knew would work. Sky, you wouldn't dare, he called back from some dark shadow of the loading dock. Drop your blaster and come out with your hands up. Do not test me. Her voice cold, confirming she was not lying. A clatter of metal against metal sounded. Slowly he came into the light. Sky heard the soldier that had been hit with Ryland's blaster moaning and screaming from his position on the floor, the plasma from the blaster continuing to dissolve tissue where it hit. She knew the healing pack could help, and she needed to get to him soon before permanent damage was done to the poor guy's arm. She needed these people to trust her fast. Not an easy feat by the looks of these fight-weary men. She looked at the remaining soldiers standing in the loading bay and several more that had stopped just outside the moment she restrained the girl. He was asleep when we arrived. He was startled and reacted badly. This was my mistake. I thought I could explain before he woke. I'm sorry for what happened, but I have something on the craft that can help your fallen brother if you will please let me get it. Let go of her and drop the weapon, the soldier closest to her ordered. Sky released her hold on the girl, dropped the weapon which clanged loudly against the floor, and raised her hands again. The girl growled and turned, swinging hard. The impact knocked Sky off her feet, but she kept her hands raised, not even using them to soften the fall, which hurt a lot. Sky also tasted blood from the strike. Soon hands were on her, roughly yanking her to her feet and wrenching her hands behind her, shackles quickly secured. It was only then she noticed the large man she'd seen from the viewing area when they arrived walking toward her, metal against metal clank sound every time he stepped with his left foot. Though dazed, Sky scanned the impressively terrifying man. His general's cloak was pulled to cover most of his left arm, fingers in a glove, but she faintly heard the whir of mechanical parts moving. How much of this man had been replaced? Sky tucked her chin as she watched him approach, raised her shoulder to wipe her chin before blood dropped onto their floor. She felt herself shake as he stopped and just watched her a moment. Where's the cargo? He demanded. Sky paled. She wished she could have thought of something, anything to keep Kyla secret. She's on one of the bunks, Sky admitted weakly, trying to come up with a way to neutralize everyone on the ship if they tried to harm her. He looked up at the soldier behind her. Is she secure? The soldier tightened the shackles down hard on her wrists. Sky winced, but she didn't move. Completely secure, sir. The general took her arm and shoved her forward. Show me, and if you resist in the least, I will end you. Sky knew it was a promise, not a threat. She struggled to keep her balance with him pulling her roughly. She guided him to where Kyla rested, subtly glancing at him to see if she could find where the switch had been tucked that controlled the metal components that replaced the missing parts of his body. Kyla looked peaceful as she lay. Sky felt the general's hand loosen on her arm the moment he saw her. His hand dropped, didn't even look back at Sky as he approached Kyla, gently brushed hair away from her face, and slowly lifted the pendant that hung around her neck. You said you had something that could help my soldier? He asked without looking away from Kyla, his words softer. Yes, the bag next to her, large white bottle. It needs to be poured on his wound now. The words rushed out. She wanted to do it, but knew they didn't trust her yet. Are you Sky? The question made her freeze. How did. I mean, what? Yes, she finally said, not knowing what to even ask. You, release her. You, grab the bottle. He ordered two of his men. Sky felt the shackles release, grabbed the bottle before the soldier could completely pull it from the bag, and ran. She vaguely noticed one of the soldiers try to grab her, but the general's arm shot out, stopping him. Sky rushed to the fallen soldier, ripped his clothes away from the wound, and quickly opened the bottle before pouring a small amount of the liquid directly on the angry, festering wound. White foam bubbled, completely surrounding the wound instantly. The soldier stopped screaming and took a deep breath in relief. Just breathe, Sky soothed. The shot just grazed you, and this will neutralize the plasma. It didn't burn very deep. You should be fine, she explained what she was seeing. Sky may have been more relieved than the soldier that she'd been able to get to him in time. It was her fault he'd been shot. This was all her fault. She looked up at the soldiers that were standing around, watching and waiting for her to show any sign she would harm their brother. Watch him for a moment. I'll be right back, she requested, waited for them all to nod before she got up and rushed back up the loading ramp. She checked Kyla one more time before she hefted the portable healer pack onto her shoulder to run back. She returned the rest of the liquid carefully back into its place in the bag, not knowing when or how she would replace the valuable salve. Sky found the adhesive bandage, broke the seal, and gently placed it over the wound to hold the liquid in place and protect it until it could fully heal. Sky could breathe again. He was going to be okay. There would be a small scar, but that would be it. He wouldn't have to pay for her mistake. She felt the general move behind her. Whatever happened to her now didn't matter. The general seemed to be of no threat to Kyla. Sky had the feeling he felt protective toward her, much to Sky's relief. Whatever came next she would deserve and accept without resistance or complaint. It was a glancing hit. The plasma didn't burn very deep. It will leave a small scar, but he'll have full use, she advised while she had the chance, unable to look at the intimidating presence behind her. There was a pause. She braced to be yanked again. Thank you, the voice behind her said with surprising gentleness. The unfamiliar kindness stung her eyes. Not trusting her voice, she nodded. We have a medical suite. We need to move the cargo there. Will she be okay? Her thoughts turning back to Kyla's condition continued to sting Sky's eyes. I've done a few scans, read her medical report. What they did to her should have caused more damage, but she hasn't woken yet. She tried to explain, tried to sound like she knew what to do. She looked up at him and surrendered. I'm hopeful, but I don't know. Are you a healer? He asked more forcefully. Sky hid her dread. Sure, she was a healer, one whole day of study only. She nodded as she forced herself to breathe deep in order to not pass out. The general made one quick nod. Good, you will be useful. We'll move the cargo, then you can set up what you have. We'll need everything you've brought. Sky took another deep breath. Everything she brought? The limited options and amounts from her portable healer pack? Well, if they were useful until her expertise and supplies ran out, they would be safe for the next week. The timeline to get Rylan back to Suina and make sure Kyla was safe had begun.